Fire, energy, heat, light, the dispeller of evil, the purifier. Fires once lit across the isles near this hallowed time. Now I sit with my fire, knowing only some still flicker in unison. This is the Celtic celebration of Beltane, an ancient tradition spanning back to early Irish culture and one of the 4 major seasonal Gaelic festivals. Beltane celebrated the late spring and the beginning of the light half of the year. The days are once again longer, frosts cease to freeze the land, plants begin to awake from their winter sleep, and the living beings flourish. The land is starting to prepare its plentiful bounty, harvested at Lanusa. But spiritually, this is important as we see the duality of the year transition into the lighter half. The harsh and dark, deep winter, a time where spiritual activity is rife. To survive to this point is a celebration as they make it into easier times. Beltane is one of the 4 annual Celtic festivals. Like Samhain, at the time of Beltane, as the world shifts from a state of dark to a state of light, the veil between the human and the other world once again bends, allowing the ancestors to gather near. But it also leaves the door open to other supernatural entities. Though, unlike Samhain, it was not a time when the dead would return, but nature spirits and the Fae would slip through, as the world once again came alive. Beltane is believed to be an ancient Celtic practice. The Irish tale of the Tochmarc Emir, the wooing of Emir, a story part of the Irish collection of the Ulster cycle recorded in the 11th century, but telling the story of Irish heroes from the 1st century, along with the Sanas Cormac's glossary, both tell us that at the height of spring, on May Eve, Druids would light 2 great bonfires whilst reciting incantations, and drive the cattle between fires. These fires are said to cleanse the cattle of disease and provide good luck going into the growing season. Beltane roughly translates to Bel's fire, and scholars suggest this relates to Belanus, the sun god. The stories are also supported by the Tochmarc Emir that casually tells of Beltane and its practices as part of an unrelated and wider story, suggesting the holiday and its customs are common knowledge within Celtic culture. In households, Beltane also signalled the refresh and the relighting of the hearth, refreshing the lifeblood of the home after a long cold winter during the mild spring. Whether Beltane lasted the centuries since the early records is hard to know. Early figures such as Scottish writer Martin Martin in the late 17th century suggested the practice was just a memory in the Western Isles of Scotland, though there is some scrutiny due to practices suggesting that the fires were kept unlit until a tax was paid and that the fires were used to burn criminals. Very different to the stories we've heard to date, leaving some scepticism as to the accuracy. Beltane has since been revived in the Gaelic countries of Ireland, Scotland and Wales, but it has spread beyond the Gaelic lands with the adoption into modern Wicca and neo-pagan beliefs. I don't believe this should be much of a surprise, but much of the early beliefs and celebrations were based upon a culture that raised cattle and crops. They were tangled with nature and the seasons for their own survival, and these celebrations and practices were often tied to the agricultural calendar and turning points of the year. They lived close to their world, and it's something that people crave today. Old celebrations and customs have been revived and adopted to connect more deeply with one's own local nature and sense of individual culture, with the backdrop of an increasingly urbanised world and globalised culture. Now, this isn't the grand fires of old, but there is something that feels special about lighting the fire in tune with the Earth's light phase, celebrating the coming of warmer times, and sitting here with the belief that at this time the ancestors are closer. Perhaps you can see them in the fire, in the crackling of the wood, in the warmer air, in the moonlight, and thank the earth for another summer and the return to the light.